Okay, so today I'm just going to show you we're going to look at some of the geospatial capabilities in Qlik, and we're going to see how that can help analyze and optimize sales. Just to set the scene, this is dummy data for a fictional restaurant chain, and we're going to be looking at, roughly speaking, a month worth of demo data in this. If I move over across to the next sheet, here you can see that we've got our different restaurants, and I'm coming into this as a territory manager. So I manage several different restaurants in a particular region. And here you can see that we've put the nice little icons there. The size of the icon represents the total spend, the total sales within each of those restaurants. And in this case, I've also plotted the competition. So all these red dots represent the competition that sell a similar cuisine to what we're offering. And in this case, you can see that it's pizza, just to keep on topic. Here, straight in the center, we've got a relatively small store. So if I select that store there, we can really focus on that particular store and the metrics associated to it. So on the left hand side, once I've made my selection, you can see here we've got the restaurant versus the average restaurant within this particular territory that I run. So here you can see that on average it's performing £14,000 less than the other stores in the region. Here we can see details around the capacity, but more importantly, we've created a metric here, which is gross sales per table. So we're putting it, some restaurants might have 20 tables, some might have 15, some might have 40. We want to create that parity there, a level playing ground. So here we can see on average, each table in this case is performing £431 less than other restaurants or other tables within other restaurants. And we want to get a real good understanding of why that is. Now, just by visualizing this, we can see that this particular store is surrounded by other restaurants of our chain within the region. So there's potential there for cannibalization. But we can investigate this further by actually plotting on things like travel areas. So here in the bottom left, I've just shown a travel area. So we're looking at pedestrians. So we're looking at this by duration. So we're looking at a 5-minute walk distance from this particular store. And within there, you can see that we just touch on another restaurant within the region, plus many different of the competition there as well. So we've got a real concentration of competition around this poorly performing store. We can do things like increasing this to 13 minutes as an example. We can increase it down to 1, and we can change it to kilometers, so by distance instead of duration. And we can do lots of stuff in terms of analyzing, what's the kind of catchment area. If we had access to population data, we can map that into there as well. And we can really calculate and get some interesting insights. But in this case, I'm actually going to pass the book over to the person that runs this particular restaurant. So what I'm going to do here is just make use of the collaboration capabilities within Qlik. So I'm just going to create a note here, and I'm just going to pass it over to Andy and say, what's happening with your store? I'm not expecting Andy to reply to this, but it just shows that you can tag people, you can really collaborate and have that kind of water cooler moment, even though people might be remote and not actually within the same room. In this case, we can do things like actually capture some of these images as well, these visualizations. So I can add the snapshot to a note. And then what we're going to do is we're going to then look at what's going on within that particular store. So I'm just going to close this note down, and we're going to go over to the next sheet here. So in this case, we've now identified a particular store. We've seen that it's surrounded on all sides by competition, but also restaurants of the same chain. I'm now going to come into this as a restaurant manager. So now I've been tasked by my boss to understand why, sales per table is a lot less than others that I'm competing against. Now, in this case, we can see that we've plotted our data on a visualization. We've actually mapped the layout of the restaurant on a schematic in Qlik here as well. And each of these bubbles represent the sales per table, because we're collecting that information behind the scenes. Now, interestingly, just by simply plotting the layout and the table locations, we can actually see that the best performing tables are the ones away from the kitchen, away from the toilets, away from the entrance, because people want to be away from that cross breeze, or people walk into the toilets and potentially the smell or whatever it is, or the noise from the kitchen. So here we can see there's obviously a preference over here. So as a restaurant manager, I might be more interested in saying, well, I wonder what happens if I put a barrier between these common areas to give people a more intimate and quieter experience. But what we can also do here is look at some of the other metrics as well, and what other insights we can get from this particular data. So interestingly here, you can see that we've got the table numbers and the seats associated to each of these tables. And we've got 2 6-seaters within this particular restaurant. We've got one that's earning £2.5 grand and one that's earning almost £3,000 there. So this particular table is earning, roughly speaking, that £500 less than others of a similar capacity. So let's have a little look at this. So now we've identified a particular table that is performing below par. We can switch this up to be average spend per head. Now, interestingly, when we look at it per cover, so per an individual sitting at the table, we're actually getting some of our best sales. So on average, people are spending £52 each when sat at that particular table. So it's performing well. People are obviously staying there for a longer period, potentially having more drinks, an extra course. They might be having a dessert and stuff, or a starter. But we still haven't discovered why it's not performing quite right there. So when we switch this up to be average spend per capacity, this is where we start seeing something interesting. So here we can see that per capacity, it's only £29 versus the £35 of the other 6-seater within the restaurant. If we then look at average covers, we then get a much clearer picture. So on average, in this case, we're only doing 3.3 covers, so 3 to 4 people sitting at a 6-seater table. So as a restaurant manager, what I could then do is say, well, let's split this table up. Let's convert this 6-seater into a 2 and a 4. So there where you've got someone that is, or a 3 and a 3, and then we're making best use of this particular table. We're using data to drive action, and then I can write back to my manager and propose those suggestions, and then go away and implement it.
PizzaExpress is a bit of a British institution, you could say. I mean, it's been around since 1965, so one of the longest running kind of casual dining companies. We have around 400 restaurants in the UK and Ireland. We also have around 20 in Hong Kong and around 10-15 in the UAE as well. My role in kind of BI is showing how data is so powerful and can help people's day-to-day roles. The tiniest KPI, for example, in a dashboard can make a huge difference to the day-to-day running of a restaurant. Even looking at like the amount of waste we make one day, for example, can make a huge difference to the final to the profit number. It's been a long-running tradition where you run competitions in restaurants between the waiting staff, and literally whoever sells the most pizzas will get, at the end of the week, will get some sort of voucher or something like that, which is a really great incentive and something the staff really like. But it was quite a hard way of measuring that, really. And it was in terms of either kind of looking at the till, kind of almost like scraping lots and lots of data to get to that point. And it felt like really hard work to get there. And we had all this great kind of till data all sitting in our IT systems, and kind of felt, okay, well, there's clearly a want to use data in some way, and we couldn't have the data. So what was really helpful was I was able to join those two things together in a really nice way of doing it. And Qlik is the great enabler of that, in terms of not only providing the data in a really robust way, but also in a really nice visual way. It's probably going to highlight some parts that you could never consider before. And I think that those are kind of the main kind of really high level areas where I believed it could help. I joined about 3.5 years ago. My background's in consulting, so I've worked with kind of BI projects before, and a lot of different companies, and obviously as a consultant rather than an internal resource. When I joined, existing IT director kind of built this really robust data warehouse, which had a huge amount of data and disparate data in it. It was really nicely collated. Finance were already using it to analyze data, but there was no real visualization or any kind of tool or any kind of BI reporting tool like that. We had some static basic stuff, which was purely, these are the sales for this week, for example. I mean, it helped, but it didn't really give much insight. We looked at the big hitters in terms of like the Gartner quadrants, and that was quite a sensible thing to do. I'd worked with Power BI in the past. That was one we considered. But Qlik was just really stood out for me in terms of, we had a bit of a philosophy. Well, part of the philosophy in the BI strategy we have here is that we don't really necessarily want to outsource all of our development to a third party, because we like that control and the agility we get from doing things ourselves. But we didn't have a huge team of developers that could go and sit and dedicate 100% of their time to writing dashboards or anything like that. So we kind of came up with this nice kind of hybrid where we wanted to utilize the business users' expertise in terms of them building the dashboards. And we felt that Qlik was the most straightforward one for them to learn in terms of a lot of these tools are drag and drop initially, in terms of, so that's quite easy to do. But when you want to delve into do things more complicated, it can be really quite technical. So Qlik just felt like the leader in that. We then initially started off with just rolling out to our operations teams and our territory managers, who each look after about 10 restaurants each. And they really liked it in terms of it kind of blew their minds in terms of the immediacy that the data was available and the kind of the one version of the truth. Because in the past they've received Excel documents, they've had to do their own manipulation. It took them time. I mean, their primary role is to look after their managers and make sure their restaurants are as profitable as possible. They didn't have time to start messing around with spreadsheets and to get to the data they needed. So it saved them so much time. It was really valuable, and that was the feedback we received. And that kind of all passed on to senior management, and they liked it. They felt that the investment that we made was having a return immediately. Beginning of this year, we moved to the SaaS model from the on-premise, because that was the agreement we had, and we felt that we were okay with managing 40 to 50 users on the on-premise. We could do that ourselves with the help of Ometis, but now we're talking kind of 300 to 400 users. We felt we needed a scalable, robust system, which was the SaaS model. And just the exciting developments they're bringing out is really important as well. In terms of, especially kind of the mobile app, because we have an iPad in each restaurant, so the ability to view that on the iPad is really important to us. And then so that's really enabled us to start looking at restaurant analytics, which we're hoping to kind of deploy this summer, which will be a massive step forward. And it's really, really exciting. It's got a lot of traction within the business, a lot of talk about it. And that's kind of where we are at the moment. So we're preparing for that, making sure the training's on point, because we want to make sure the adoption works. We have no doubt the tool is right for what we want to do. In terms of the SaaS model, I think we had a few issues around performance in the past with on-premise, so we've got no worries about that anymore with SaaS. The fact it's completely managed by Qlik, it makes a huge difference. I haven't got to keep pestering our infrastructure guys to go, okay, can we get more memory or anything like that to make sure that we can handle all the use. In terms of the usability, the mobile app is huge. That's readily available for us. We can plug into our own Active Directory, which means that there's no need for a VPN. That was a bit of a problem in the past for us. That's not needed anymore, which makes a huge difference. That was always going to be a bit of a hindrance in terms of we had to get users to log onto a VPN first and then into Qlik, which it's that small hurdle, but it's these tiny things that make a difference. And then it's the content updates. Now it's all done under the bonnet, so we don't have to worry about those. If there's ever a need to roll back, it's all managed by Qlik. Any kind of issues in terms of problems that might be under the bonnet, all completely automatically notified by Qlik. So it's, in terms of customer experience, for both us and also the restaurants, the licenses, it's very seamless, and we don't have to do an awful lot for it. And that's really useful as well, so we can spend time on other stuff. We've pinpointed these super users, which I think has been a really important point. So we found people who have a bit of a flair for this already, and they were producing Excel dashboards. Like, particular one user was creating like these amazingly complicated Excel reports. And the really great thing is they then teach others. So it's this great kind of knock-on effect that we didn't really expect as well, in terms of they're not only really great at the role, but they're massive advocates and evangelize Qlik. which we haven't even asked them to do. I keep track of all the logs of Qlik and everything, so I'm quite a bit of a geek in terms of how people are using it, type of thing. We've seen this a massive take up of it, and people, not necessarily a good thing, but people logging in very late, very early. I seem to be obsessed with data. I think just for normal life, we become analysts in different ways. And I think people love numbers, and they love trying to make sense of those numbers. The territory manager can take an iPad, go and speak to their restaurant manager, go and speak to the staff, and go and say it. And because we even have way to level information, they can go and say, okay, well, you did X number of sales last week. That's really well done. Or they can say, okay, well, we're a little bit below target. Have a team meeting and maybe show it out on their tablet or show it on the computer screen and go, okay, well, as a team, let's just try and do a bit better this week. So it's kind of a combination of giving them hard values, which is going to make them better at their job, but also kind of helping a bit of collaboration within the team as well. But before, they had to do a lot of manual manipulation. So now it's these dedicated dashboards, which are updated 4 times a day just to capture the latest data. They've got no worries about the quality or the immediacy of the data. They can, if there is an issue, we'll inform them, but kind of 99% of the time, it's going to be correct. So they don't have to worry about that. And that's a massive deal. When in terms of they have to often make presentations to their managers, they can grab screenshots from Qlik if they want to, or they can use Qlik itself as just to demonstrate it, because they become more au fait with Qlik as they've been using it for over a year now. We are close to rolling out a near real-time dashboard as well, so it'll be about 30 minutes behind from now. And that's going to be really powerful in terms of just providing that kind of competitive element within the restaurants. But the aim is that all the restaurant staff will have availability to their sales for that day and that given time, and then they'll be see against their colleagues in a different restaurant down the road. And speaking to restaurant staff, there is a competitive element between them. So having that to give it like as a measurement, I think is really powerful. And then they can have a bit of banter between each other and go, okay, well, I've done this number of sales and everything. And we'll use them for competitions as well. I think that's inevitably going to drive sales. So it's kind of looking for those marginal gains and then looking at reducing the outputs as well as improving sales. It's kind of 4 main KPIs they really focus on. So the obvious one is sales. Another one is waste. They put it on the table and haven't put it through the till, for example. Another one is the customer feedback, which is super important to PizzaExpress. And so they can pinpoint not only those quantitative feedback in terms of the cleanliness, the speed of service, those type of metrics, but also we've actually recently brought in comments as well from the customer. So we've actually produced this nice word cloud. So we've got make it really, really obvious if there's a particular bone of contention for customers. And then the other one, which we're bringing through shortly, which for our kind of company scorecard, is our attrition. So the number of starters and leavers effectively in the last three periods, which is, again, it's important. The hospitality industry is kind of known for its large churn of employees. Having this data available in Qlik for the restaurants makes a massive difference to them. We know it's a single version of the truth in terms of which numbers they're using. It also means that they get the data really quickly to them. So they're not having to wait a day or two for important statistics. They have it available to them within a couple of hours, or in the case of our real-time dashboard, in the last 30 minutes. So, I mean, that's going to make a massive difference to running a business, and sometimes a multi-million-pound business for one restaurant. I think this makes everyone better informed. So, like our board members are very much big advocates of Qlik. Obviously, they make the big decisions. They need to have as much information as possible. And I think that's the really key thing, is that they are as informed as we can make them in terms of the decision they make. It then trickles down. We make sure that there's one single version of the truth. That was a bit of a problem before we brought in Qlik, in terms of we had all these spreadsheets flying around. There was human error was introduced inevitably because of this. There was confusion a lot of the time. This means that we have one number, like for net sales, for example. We have one number for the customer feedback and that type of thing. So I think it makes a huge difference. And I think that's really helped the company going forward. Yeah, so Ometis have been our partner for the last 18 months or so. We chose them because they were the kind of leading Qlik consultancy in the UK. So it's kind of a bit of a no-brainer for us. We worked with one of their developers to set up the on-premise environment. We did that in the space of a week. So it was very quick, which is great, kept everything on budget. And then Alex and his team helped us with migrating to the SaaS model. Again, seamless. It was done in January. I think it took about 3 to 4 weeks to get it all set up. Considering that was quite a big migration because we built quite a large number of apps at that point. And obviously moving over all the back end stuff. It was all on budget. It was very easily communicated. So yeah, I couldn't speak more highly than the team. And because it's just one less worry. It means that, okay, well, we got all this technical stuff. I'm just going to give it to these guys. I know they're going to do a good job and they're going to do it on time. It's very kind of a laid back relationship we have. And we chat on Teams all the time. If there's kind of not only on a particular subject, but if there's a new development Qlik have released, I'll often get a message from Alex, one of the team, saying, okay, this has just been released. Maybe you want to have a look at that. And then also kind of the conferences that come up as well. It's very informal, which is great. I don't want it to be really particularly formal. I think I like kind of that quick interaction we have. It's just, it's very easy, very, very seamless. My aspiration is after we've deployed to the restaurants and deployed our company scorecard, we'll start moving into other departments in terms of, like, for example, the marketing and our HR departments, because there's huge use cases there. But also making use of some of the new SaaS tools that are going to be available. Like, for example, we had a call with one of the Qlik team on Blender a couple of weeks ago, just showing us the capabilities of that. I think that's really, really exciting. I quite like the fact that Qlik are focusing a lot of attention on the back end, not just the visualizations. And I can almost see, maybe not in the next 12 months, maybe a bit further after that, is almost making the Qlik platform kind of our all-encompassing end-to-end BI tool. Our last kind of couple of months, we've had Teams calls with our CEO, COO, and all the other kind of parts of the senior membership team, just demoing Qlik, showing what we can do with it. And then I've had numerous requests, such as that real-time dashboard from our CEO. So this would be very, very useful. Can we look into this? The fact that they're that engaged is great, because it's half the battle sometimes with any kind of BI project. It's getting senior buy-in, and because it's not always immediate, because they often just see the shiny dashboard and don't see all the benefits from it. So I think it's making a huge difference to them. And like I said before, they know that they're getting correct information to make decisions upon. And when there's such massive decisions with and obviously a quickly changing industry that we're in, it's very important to them to make sure that they have the data available to them. I had a bit of pushback originally because we were using the Microsoft stack, and there was a lot of say, okay, well, let's just use Power BI because it fits in with everything else. And I kind of felt that, okay, well, maybe that makes sense from a very kind of broad level, but it's because the technology is the same. But I think it's worthwhile for any kind of person who's in a similar role to me as a BI manager, is to really kind of delve a bit deeper and to think about the model, see what we're going to push forward with. It's going to be an ongoing project for my whole time at PizzaExpress, because it's ever evolving. And the way that Qlik are investing into SaaS at the moment, and hopefully will do in the future, it's going to help with so many use cases going forward. So I would really advise them just not say look at the software which fits your underlying data management tool, but really look at the functionality that Qlik offers. It's a great hybrid model, like I mentioned before, where we take real ownership of it. We can do our own development, but then we have Ometis there as almost like, okay, well, guys, we don't know how to do this bit. Can you help us? Migrating to SaaS, for example, we probably would have struggled with doing on our own, purely from not just a resource perspective, from an expertise perspective as well. And it works so well in terms of just the hybrid model. We got heavily involved with my team, and so did Alex and his team. So I would really advise him to look at that as well, not just outsource everything or just do everything internally. I think that's definitely a way forward as well. The launch of the real-time dashboards, I saw a massive spike in use. I had emails from the CEO and everyone like that saying, this is great, this is making a massive difference to us. Being able to see the cell, being able to, like, if there's an issue, being able to fix today rather than having to learn tomorrow from it. So that was good. That was a good moment. Well, it's a good question. I feel like Qlik is like my baby in PizzaExpress. I feel like I don't want to like appear arrogant, but I feel like I did the work to bring Ometis in. to get Qlik set up for both on-premise and SaaS, pushing forward the adoption, just evangelizing constantly to the point where people were bored of me talking about it. To now kind of see it, how positive it is, how popular it is. I mean, that feels really good, and it's kind of thing that kind of, it's a cheesy line. It's what gets you up in the morning. It means that what you're doing is worthwhile to the company. It's helping the company not only hopefully make more money, but also making people's working lives better in restaurants and that sort of thing, because they're the core of the business. If they're not happy, then the rest of us are going to struggle. So yeah, that's probably how I feel about it.
One of the questions asked was, can I use the geo aspects to show where stock is being regularly picked from in a warehouse to drive changes? I'm assuming to where frequently picked items are stored. You don't want to send people off to the far end of the warehouse and stuff. So yeah, retail related, I think. But
yeah, absolutely. So we've done something similar as a proof of concept for other prospects, where we've actually mapped the particular racking and the bins where people go ahead and pick items from. So it's exactly the same concept as plotting, the layout of a warehouse in this case. And it doesn't have to be, bubbles that we're using here. It could actually be areas where we're actually mapping out the specific bin locations. And what we've done in other cases is we've had maybe two views. We've had a top-down view of the warehouse, but once they get to a particular location, they then have a separate screen where it actually has a front-on view of that particular racking, just because some might have, several sections or segments where you've got a middle, and high tier, and then individual bins within that as well.
okay,
So yes,
all right.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So from a slightly different tack, Paul, one of the guys, wrote in the week saying, we're an e-tailer. Can I link Google Analytics with our website sales metrics?
Right,
That's
okay.
Slightly different angle.
Yeah, a bit different. Yeah, absolutely. So as long as you're capturing the Google Analytics data, so things like the tracking ID, the client ID, and the user ID, and bringing that into your database as part of that sale, then yes, we can tally the two together, and then you can do things like basket analysis. What did they add to their baskets when they first went into there? Did they abandon it? How many times did they abandon the cart before they actually went ahead and made the purchase? So yes, absolutely, you can do that.
Okay, all right, interesting. Have we got any examples of companies that are tracking where people are looking in stores or typical routes around them? I vaguely recall isn't there an airport example of this?
Yeah, so this one wasn't ours, but there is an example that I believe is publicly available, where or at least in video format, where a particular airport was actually allowing the visitors to connect to the Wi-Fi, and then they were pinging their mobile phones every 10, 15 minutes or so, and then they were tracking where they were at any point within the airport. So they were tracking how long they were taking to get through security, where did they stop between security and their gate. So did they go through, well, everyone has to go through duty free usually, but did they stay there for a bit of time? Did they go around a particular path around the airport? So usually they try and optimize their walkways as much as possible, and they have a clear route that they want to try and persuade people to go down. So they have things like signs and stuff to help guide people through that airport. So
Yeah, it helps
yes,
with placing adverts and things as well, I guess.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, it's an interesting one then. So can we bring in population and demographic data to help us where to plan to open future stores?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
guess where are there large population centres, I guess, isn't it? And have we got stores there, or are the competition there?
Yeah, I alluded to this during the demo. So you can do that. You will need to obviously capture that data or find a source for that. Sometimes, or quite commonly, The government will have some open data sets which have population per area, per particular district and stuff like that, where you can then bring that in and then map it to a particular store location and get around it that way.
Okay. I don't have any more preset ones. Has anybody got any questions from the floor? You'd like to join in? We can sort of open up your mic if that's what you'd like to do. If you just raise your hand and we can answer the question. No volunteers. I might have to volunteer someone. Where's Richard Cook? He's normally good for a question. I mean, one of the things I would say is that the PizzaExpress video that you saw, if other people would like to do one of those for their own company, then please do get in touch, because we're always looking to do that sort of thing, and hopefully it can be a bit of promotion for you guys as well. So, Caroline, Sharon, sorry, Caroline. Sharon,
Oh,
can I
that's
hop back to you?
yes, we can. But I think Richard has actually just raised his hand, so I will unmute him, and I'm sure he'll have something to say back to you, Neil.
Probably.
1 second. I'm just trying to figure out how to unmute him. Hold on.
Oh yeah.
It's bizarre. It's not letting me unmute for some reason.
I'll be able to unmute himself, maybe.
Yeah, there we go. Hi, Richard. Richard, we can hear you in the background slightly. No. Can't hear him, I'm afraid.
No, that's no problem at all. So the last thing that's left from me today is to just give you an update as to what our next webinar is going to be. So we're hosting it on Tuesday the 14th of December at 11 a.m. and it will be covering dynamic views, which basically enable you to query and view relevant subsets of data in charts that can be dynamically refreshed when certain selections are made. So the normal format will be that myself or Neil, one of us, will be presenting some information as to what dynamic views is, and then one of our technical colleagues, most likely Chris, and I've just kind of volunteered him into it, we'll be doing a demonstration for you to show you how that works as well. So we'll be sending out some information about that and how you can register for it. But yes, thank you ever so much, everybody, for joining us. We do hope you found it very useful, and we will let you all know when the link in the YouTube recording is live as well. So thank you very much, everyone. Take care.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye-bye.